This happens to me a lot. And I think it's probably because people can't stand people like me. I have a tendency to go into some video that I really like, and I tend to pick something out, and you know, I think Belinda Carr is getting upset of having me around, and I think the reason why is because I'm I'm trying to help, and I think she thinks that I'm trying to ruin her subscription base. But if she watches this, keep in mind, Belinda, I don't care about money. I don't care about subscribers. I mean, I could have 3 million subscribers, and the thing that I would be worrying about is not how much money I'm making, but how much security I'm going to need in order to protect myself in case somebody of those 3 million are like really pissed off at me and wants to come out and kill me. That's the reason why I'm concerned about subscription. Also, the other thing is that I don't consider subscribers to be loyal. Some would, some won't. And if you say something like this, I masturbate to porn, that will lose most of your subscribers. And my subscriber base knows that I've said this a million times. When I worked as a bagger for Kroger, um, and it's a long story. I had a computer science degree with minor in art. I had won the Alias Wavefront student competition in 1996. So I'm familiar with Maya and all those guys in the SGI workstations. I could have gotten a job at Pixar if I had pursued it. I had worked on all sorts of stuff. I had worked on with a guy named David Kilman. I worked on a project called Telemed. Actually, was what was left of Telemed after he claimed that some people from that, I think what they were vendors of Microsoft, came before a committee and tried to stop the labs from developing Telemed because they claimed, according to my boss, claimed that it was competing with their sales. And my boss said all they're selling is Excel and, Word, Office and stuff like that. They weren't selling what they were working on in Telemed, and they probably had no clue what it was that they were working on. They probably just thought that, probably got wind that the lab was working on some healthcare software, and thought, oh man, they're getting into our realm. They're probably going to get people were selling Microsoft software to doctors and stuff, and the government can't get involved in medical sciences. And so they probably went out after them in complete ignorance, because the way that our world works these days is that the government can't possibly do anything right, okay? But keep in mind, at the Department of Energy, which supports LANL, they're trying to think up all sorts of solutions. One of the guys I was working with out there was working on a way of determining the permeation time for a gas mask cartridge using multi-vapor environments. And the idea behind that is to know when to throw out your gas cartridges, when their due date is, based upon when you start using them, based on your environment, because it's different for everybody's environments. And when not, I mean, so when the permeation would be how long it'll take for the vapor environment to permeate the cartridges, so as to save you money and to save your life, okay? And I was working on that project too. But the Telemed, the whole purpose behind this thing, and it was probably as a result of these idiot vendors coming in, claiming that we were encroaching, or they were encroaching, Alana was encroaching on their market. And this can happen as private industry can come in, and if they can convince some bureaucratic types that don't know anything about science or whatever it is that's being developed by the scientists, they can basically like as with our patent office, get something in there that will prevent good stuff from happening. Okay. And what Telemed project was originally was to it was to help find it was to help find a relationship between healthcare records at two or more institutions in a peer-to-peer model, which is not being done at all, as far as I know. I talked to somebody about this. This is untrue. You know, whenever you get in a car accident, they look at your fingerprints. I'm saying that's just one that's just one method of identifying someone. This solution was designed to work with any number of those, like fingerprint, eye, retinal scan, blood type, address. I mean, ID9s, if you're familiar with ID9s, address, name, things like that. And it was, and the HL7 was involved with this thing, and but the solution was going to be implemented on Corba, not XML. And the reason for that is that when Corba integrates with software technology, it has to be efficient in the messages that it passes. And so it uses a strongly typed method based on remote procedure method calls. So it makes these functional calls on these things called orbs, and the orbs would connect to your mainframe or whatever, and they could bring up a specific they could spawn off an object, give it a reasonably random number, which is a way of naming things without being creative, and is what's called namespaces. So it would create a namespace. It would just spawn off an object, create an object of some type of something that you needed to work with. Say it was you're going to create a document. So it spawns off a document, gives it this unique name, and then you can start writing into that document remotely through the Corba interface. And you don't have to give the entire document over. You can give it by sentences. You can do it really efficiently as you're working on it. And so the idea is that it's fairly inefficient. It's not very bureaucratic. It's very easy to determine compliancy just by looking at the method interface and doing introspection, stuff like that. XML, you can, the problem with XML, the good thing, the plus to XML is that it's humanly readable. The downside to it is it has to be parsed. It takes time to parse it. It's not efficient. And in the case of HL7, it would have to send everything in a big old file together at once, and it would be really slow if you were handling lots of patient records. So it was, Corba would do really minimalistic function calls or procedure calls. And the other thing was that people who hate Corba might not understand is that according to my boss, David Kilman, he was originally getting into all this thing because he wanted to automate with robots surgery, and part of that was that he needed to have access to the healthcare records in order to verify if there was a potential for adverse reactions from things like I mean, this is really pie in the sky stuff, because I mean, robots working on doing surgery, and I mean, he was just really out there because he was wanting to start the ball rolling. He didn't expect that it would happen in his lifetime, but he wanted to start the ball rolling, and as a requirement for that, part of it that he was thinking about was, okay, how do we ensure that the patient is going to be given the right kind of anesthesia, because you can kill a person if they are if the anesthetics that you're using they have no immunity to, that their system is it'll kill them. And I mean, you know about that because you have to write down a form. I don't have I'm not allergic to this kind of anesthetic or whatever. And so he was looking in to see if there was a way of finding out information about the health care of a patient, and found out that there's nothing there. That all of the majority of the records that are kept on patients pertain, or the ones that are transferred from place to place, all pertain to the accessibility of insurance, uh, the ability for the patient to have insurance to cover whatever it is needed by that patient. The HIPAA regulation, all it is it's the government saying, we don't know how to do this, but if in the case of the internet, you're going to need ample amount of security and checks on each person. You're going to have you're going to have to be able to do an authentication check. You're going to have to make sure that they have the credentials, that we log it so that we know they were there and which machines they were on when they did this, so that we can, have alibis or whatnot in case something bad happens. And that the communication of the records is done through, if it's got healthcare records in it, that it never gets in the hand of insurance companies, and all sorts of stuff, that it is transferred securely, and that it is stored in the computer, and that no insurance company can intercept it, and so on and so on and so on. And that's in HIPAA. And then the other flip side of it is the loophole is that you give the patient their records, and they sneaker them over to the other doctor. So the entire liability rests on the patient and not on the institution. So that was what HIPAA regulations was. That was really our government saying, we don't know how to do this. We don't have the funds to really do this. We're going to lay the responsibility on the doctors and the clinics and hospitals. So telemed was already, and I was already thinking of solutions for this, and talking to him and saying, okay, why don't we do it like with how we do secure communications over the internet by using asynchronous or using asymmetric key encryption, public key encryption with a symmetric key encryption, and certificate authorities. And so if the certificate authorities weren't certificate authorities for domains, but certificate authorities for like that this doctor had been to various sorts of the certificate authorities would be like colleges that the guy had gotten his credentials from, that you could do instantaneous, if it was implemented, you could do instantaneous background checks. And that would have to be done on every access to any record in any institution that was using this telemed system. And in the telemed system was a way of identifying each person accessing the system with respect to their identifiers, a combination of identifiers, and using fuzzy logic to relate all those identifiers to say that this really is the person that's sitting down at the computer, is really the person. So they might have all these bioinformatic things making sure that you are who you say you are. I mean, Mission Possible don't have anything on that. Fuzzy logic, AI there to try to make sure that you are the person, and then you're typing in and working on this stuff. And so that was the kind of stuff, and I just divulged a lot of information. I'm not sure this is going to be good for the world, because now you probably have an idea of a way we can track everybody on the earth. And the thing that we have to decide now is good or bad. What are you going to do it for? Are you going to track everybody on the earth and make everybody, you're going to control everybody, which is it's like rape. What rape is, it's non-consensual sex. So against people's consent, you are going to control them. That's the pathway to evil, by the way. And that's the reason why Jesus didn't want to control the world whenever Satan tempted him. So anyhow, and also the reason why God didn't overthrow the Roman government. God gives everybody free will, and the Roman government is going to figure out over time what is so wrong with the Roman government. And Jesus and God didn't need to get involved in that. And the Jews wanted Jesus to create a kingdom on earth to overthrow the Roman rule. The reason why they hated Matthew is because he was funding the soldiers that were oppressing the Jews. And the reason why he was put on a cross was because it's the ultimate form of torture. According to the Romans, they don't even put their citizens on it. So you see, I'm pretty multifaceted whenever I get into these discussions. But anyhow, leaving that, what was I talking about? So anyhow, we need to be ethical about how we deal with tracking of people. And the software already exists. There's a guy named John Farmer. He works for CareData. And he claims that they're using this software, PIDS, which is in the Corbuzz OMG. They're using it or had used it to track illegals or just aliens, Mexicans across the border, because as is true of a lot of Spanish people, is they have last names, the same last name. So you can't really, I mean, Jose Martinez. How many Jose Martinez or how many John Smiths are there in the world? So you can't rely on name to identify somebody. So you have to go on other things, where they live, what telephone number they are, who they work for, what their blood type is, which is not really considered to be healthcare enough to be that if the insurance company had their hands on it, what would it signify? And then the other things. And that you could use that to identify rather than a numeric identifier, which is the reason why we have so much problems with identity theft, is that we're using numbers to represent people, not their actual attributes. And in this case, it's not one attribute, it's any combination of attributes, and it's using fuzzy logic to determine the accuracy of the individual that's sitting in front of the device. And it doesn't have to have, it just has to have enough accuracy based on the fuzzy accuracy, so if you understand fuzzy logic, or if you use AI or whatever. But it was really it was implementation agnostic, and it was Corba defined, it was strongly typed. And then you had PIDS, and you had RAD, was a resource allocation decider, and which was very simple. You just give the resource and what did you want to do with it, and it would determine whether or not, with the given credentials, whether or not it would give you the capacity to use that operation on that object. Very simple. They have that all in that for the OMG, and that's who I am, okay? And anyhow, Belinda, sorry for messing with you, but I have to cut this